Hi everyone, welcome to World of Tanks with stewiejp. I'm Stewie, you're not. This is another beginner's guide, a guide for the newer player who might have just started their adventure into World of Tanks and you've come across equipment. What are you going to do? What kind of equipment are you going to buy? There are so many options. What about these different slots? There's the super slot. Be careful how you say that one. The super slot gives a bit of a bigger boost, but only on certain tanks. We'll take you through that in this guide and hopefully make it not too complicated and have a look at my simplistic point of view when it comes to equipment to put on your tanks. From tier 1 to tier 10, best thing about tier 1 is you don't have to worry about it. And rightly so, you shouldn't need to put equipment on tier 1. You're not going to keep it. You might keep it in the garage for the purpose of making videos or something like this, but there's no equipment slot in any tier 1 tank, so don't worry about it. You don't need to. Let's move up to tier 2 and we'll see what kind of equipment we can put on tier 2. Now tier 2 tanks, normally, to unlock a tech tree tier 2 tank, it's only 1 or 2 games, maybe 3 games if you're unlucky. At tier 2, you only get 1 equipment slot. It goes up to 3 in the higher tiers, but at tier 2, you only need 1 equipment slot. And it doesn't matter what tier 2 tank you've got, it's only 1 equipment slot. And when you click on that slot, you're presented with these options. There's standard and special equipment. If you're not sure what special equipment is, if you just started this game, forget about it. Don't waste your bonds on special equipment, especially at low tiers. There are 9 options for tier 2 tanks. Improved ventilation, enhanced gun laying drive, hardening, binoculars, turbo, grousers, camo net, coated optics, low noise exhaust system, and there's one other option. The other option is not to put it on at all. Unless you're going to keep that tier 2 tank. Again, similar to a tier 1 tank, it's only going to take you a few games to get to the next tier. If you really must put equipment on a tier 2 tank, then I would recommend either ventilation, because it's just a bit of an all-rounder, or maybe if it's a tank that you want to be zipping around, it may be a turbocharger. At tier 2, they all cost 50,000 credits. Hardening could be an option, but hardening gives you a little bit more hit points, and it also helps your suspension, your tracks, and all that kind of stuff. I'd be more inclined to go vents, just to let you shoot a bit. You can't get a rammer on, which is the generic piece of equipment for most guns, for most tanks, is a gun rammer. You can't get a rammer at tier 2. I'd be inclined to get ventilation or gun lane drive. Gun lane drive will make your gun more accurate. Ventilation will give an extra 5% to all crew skills, which is an option for a lot of tanks. It's often a third option, but sometimes it's not. Let's move on to tier number 3. Hopefully that was pretty clear. Tier 3 is where it gets a little bit more interesting. At tier 3, you get 2 equipment slots. Now this is just a random tier 3 that I've just clicked on. It's a premium tank. I don't have many normal tier 3 tanks in my garage. There's a few sitting there, but they're generally just used for making videos and stuff. I don't sit around at tier 3. Plenty of people do. And if you do, then that's fine. If you're not, I'd consider cheaper options for the equipment. Again, equipment for tier 3. They all cost 50,000 credits. Your options are the same as at tier 2, except you can have 2 pieces of equipment. So again, I would recommend ventilation or enhanced gun laying drive, and maybe hardening, depending on the tank, because at tier 3 is when you start to get different kinds of tanks. Light tanks, heavy tanks, and medium tanks. I think there's not many tank destroyers. Oh, there's a couple of tank destroyers at tier 3. I mean, this little French tank destroyer at tier 3, again, there's no rammer available. So I'd be looking at gun laying drive. You can see there's no vents for that tank, because with vents are a thing which, like an air conditioner. If it's a tank that doesn't have a roof, like this one doesn't have a roof, it's an open kind of thing, then vents does not become an option, which kind of makes sense. So in a tier 3 tank, again, I would recommend vents. Maybe hardening if it's something you really want to go for, or enhanced gun laying drive. I don't think it really matters what kind. You could go with optics or camo nets or binos. Those kind of things will give you more vision, or they'll give you more camo value if you want to play like that at tier 3. But normally at tier 3, if you want to win games at tier 3, it's just a case of focus firing the enemy down rather than trying to outspot them or outvision them. Maybe it's you want to be super competitive at tier 3. Explore those other options. There are plenty of guides out there, but I'd be going with those options. When you get to tier 4, however, tier 4 is when the 3rd equipment slot opens up. Now, it's going to be different for tank destroyers. It's also going to be different for light tanks and medium tanks. They're going to be different options. You get 3 slots. The super slot hasn't started yet, but we're at tier 4, and recommendations for tier 4s. Again, light this is where you start getting more options in light tanks and heavy tanks and things like that. For heavy tanks, I'd recommend improved hardening, probably ventilation, and a gun rammer if it's there. It looks like a gun rammer still might not be an option at tier 4. So I'd be looking at the top 3: ventilation, gun laying drive, and hardening for anything that's going to be fighting. For something that might be more of a snipey tank, maybe binoculars instead of hardening, because if you're getting shot at, you're probably doing it wrong. Turbocharger could also be an option to get your tanks moving around the battlefield a little bit quicker. But again, at tier 4, similar to tier 3, it's more a case of focus firing when you get into the battle and knocking things out. My old mate in the Hetzer, of course, the Hetzer, got the binos. It might be one of those tanks. When I sit in the bush, get the binos happening instead of hardening. I've got a gun laying drive and improved vents on that bad boy. And this dirty, filthy little thing is the PZB2, which is it's one of the Stat Padder's tanks of choice. And on that one, I've whacked in hardening vents and enhanced gun laying drive to improve that aim time. Still no rammer is available at tier 4, which is fine. I think the rammer might come up at tier 5. And the reason I'll talk about the rammer a little bit is because the rammer is a piece of equipment that really does. If it's available, you probably should put it on your tank. There are a few exceptions. Some light tanks you might not want to do it, but in general, that's what you want to do. At tier 5, the rammer makes an appearance. Still no super slot for those people who know what the super slot is, but. And also, no, V-stabs. V-stabs is another piece of equipment which is very, very popular and important at higher tiers. But at tier 5, it's not available yet. So for a tier 5 tank, this is a medium tank. This is my PZ4H. I'll put on vents, improved rotation mechanism, which is a new piece of equipment that came out with patch 2.0, with equipment 2.0. That gives you a little quicker turret traverse, a little bit better aim time, and your vehicle traverse speed increase a little bit. If you hover over a piece of equipment, you can see these numbers up in the middle of the screen, and there are 2 sets of numbers. The improved rotation mechanism class 2 is a good example. You can see it says bonus to vehicle characteristics in the middle. It says plus 10% or plus 12.5%. Traverse speed 10 and 12.5, and dispersion minus 10 and minus 12.5. The 2 figures that are there, the second figure is what you get in the super slot. And we'll get to super slots at tier 6, I think. We'll have a look at that in just a minute. But that's in a tank like this, which is a quick-ish medium tank. Improved rotation mechanism, I would always put that on before a gun laying drive. At some tiers, some tanks only have one or the other. And of course, there are these stats as well. Ventilation, again, that helps your aim time, your reload time. And this is where you see the rammer for the first time. 10% bonus to aim time. And you can see if it's in the super slot, it's 11.5%. So it's a little bit better there. That's for a quick-ish medium tank. What else have I got? With this, I've got a light tank here, a little leopard, which we've gone with the improved rotation mechanism. Also a turbocharger. Turbochargers are a new piece of equipment as well, which you can throw into tanks, which things will make them go faster. It's as simple as that. Here's another one with a PZ54, which is another quick. Have I got different equipment on that one? Oh, no, same. They're just in different slots. A PZ54, again, I've got the improved rotation, the rammer, and the vents. Have we got any heavy tanks here? I'm sure we do. With this heavy tank, which is a Churchill, I've gone with the improved rotation mechanic again because V-stabs are not available. The reason I'll go with the improved rotation mechanism is that it's 10% better turret speed, traverse speed, and less dispersion, where the gun laying drive is just a 10% increase to aiming set. So I think that's a little bit better. I've also gone for the rammer. As mentioned earlier, the rammer is going to help you shoot more often. It's as simple as that, and that's something you want to be doing. Improved hardening gives a little bit more hit points, 8% more hit points, 50% to suspension durability, and 15% to suspension repair speed. So if you get tracked, if someone shoots you in the tracks, there's less chance of you getting tracked, and there's also a quicker time to fix those tracks. We don't have any. We've got artillery at tier 5. Artilleries are a little bit different. See, this one's an open top artillery, so you can't have vents. In an artillery, I would always put vents in, regardless of the tier, if you can, because that's one thing that's going to help your reload time. Rammer as well, and whatever is going to help your aim time. It's as simple as that. So I would probably consider improved rotation and the gun laying drive For some reason, I've got a spore liner on this. That's because of 1AR shenanigans of playing around in training rooms, rather than what I would put in there in a random battle. The M10 RBFM, which is a bit of a snipey kind of tank destroyer. You see plenty of these around at tier 5. Again, improved rotation mechanic because you can't put V-stabs on any tier 5s or any TDs either. Rammer to get that ramming speed out, and I've got the camo net on this one. It's not a tank I play very often, but a lot of people have a lot of success with the binoculars instead of a camo net. So if you're sitting in a bush, your binoculars fire up, you'll outvision whoever's coming after you. That might be another option as well. There's another medium tank with that similar thing. IRM, vents, rammer. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Let's get up to tier 6. Now we'll go by class for this one. Tier 6 with light tanks, there's a couple of options with light tanks, and tier 6 is where this super slot comes in. If you see that in the first slot, there's on a light tank, it looks like an eye because your super slot, your special ability is for vision. So when you look at the equipment options, and as you get into tier 6, more options come up. V-stabs become a thing. Other thing, modern configuration, some of these new things come out. So when you're in the menu and you click on it, just click on that. On the first one, which has got the picture of the eye there, any of these pieces of equipment will work better than if they were in a different slot. That's why that is the super slot. So the binoculars is 27.5% extra view range, rather than 25. Camo net is 10% better camouflage, rather than 12.5% rather than 10. Vents is 6% rather than 5. Coded optics 11.5% rather than 10, and low noise 8% rather than 6. They're all bonuses to some of your skills and abilities. So in this tank, I've put binoculars in there, camo net, and V-stabs. Clearly, that's set up for scouting. Whereas the Type 60 for passive scouting, I might say, because remember the binoculars and the camo net, they don't work if you're moving. You have to be stopped for a few seconds before they fire up. The other option from my point of view, in my garage, is, as you can see in the Type 64, in the first slot we've got coded optics, which gives you a bonus to your vision all the time. So the telescope binoculars is 27.5 extra view range when you're stationary, whereas the optics is when you're moving. It's 11.5%, so it's not as far, but you've got it all the time. Rammer again, so of course when I play my Type 64, I'm a little bit more aggressive than I am in my T37. So I want to be shooting more often. And I've got the IRM because it makes the gun a little bit more accurate. And of course the IRM also makes your tank a little bit more nimble. Doesn't give you as good as increase to your accuracy for your aiming as the V-stabs does, but if the gun's already set sort of pretty accurate, you've got a decently skilled crew, then that might be an option. Options for medium tanks at tier 6, again with the super slot, with the medium tanks in the super slot, it's all about mobility, the first slot for mobility. So if possible, I would put one of these options in there. Improved rotation mechanism is one of them. Vents is the other one. Now vents is a little bit different in the way that it fits in all super slots. Doesn't matter what kind of tank you drive. Turbocharger is another option for that super slot for your medium tanks. With the T34-85M, which is the one that I've got up here, I've got the IRM vents, which is also going to help my own time as well as my reload time, and rammer to keep that gun singing. Another option again for one of these secondary slots would be optics. A lot of people run optics on medium tanks to keep an eye on those enemy. Maybe swap optics out to vents. And that's pretty similar with most of my medium tanks. So there's one where I've swapped optics out for the rammer because that's an auto loader. So for an auto loader, you can't mount a gun ram. It's just one of the things about an auto loader. So don't blame me. I'd love to put a rammer in my auto loader, but it doesn't work. So in cases like that, I put optics in. Optics, vents, and still have that in the super slot, have one of those specific pieces of equipment. Some medium tanks, and this is the beauty of Equipment 2.0, there is more than one option for every kind of tank. So we can go on forever, but we're not going to go on forever. Let's have a look at some heavies. The mighty TOG, how beautiful is that? Again, the super slot for heavy tanks is survivability is what they call it. So in general, with a heavy tank, you're going to have hardening on there. Modded configuration is another option, but generally people are going to put hardening on. More hit points in the game. It's going to be great. Spore liner, maybe not something I would use. In fact, I don't think I've got any spore liners on any of my heavy tanks. I'd rather put hardening. The gun rammer, which as you can see there, and again IRM, improved rotation mechanism, which I reckon it's a pretty good option. On the TOG, there's no option for the V-stab on the TOG. Not sure why. I'm sure there's a reason, but and that's why I've got the IRM. We're going back to the garage. What else have we got? The KV2 is a bit of a different one. KV2's gun is very, very inaccurate. So for that reason, in the super slot, I've got the vents. It's got a very, very long reload, and it's got a very, very long aim time as well. So the vents are going to help both of those things. That's why that's in the super slot. What else would I put in there? That's all I'm after in my KV2R. Plenty of people will disagree. Plenty of people will put the hardening in, and that's fine. You can do that. Rammer will help the reload time again, and again IRM for that better aim time and better traverse because it is a slow tank. At tier 6, we also have tank destroyers, of course. Tank destroyers similar to the T-37 is the T-78. This one I've put. You can't put vents in this tank because it's an open top, similar to the Hellcat or the Wolverine. No vents, so I'll put a camo net in instead. Again, IRM and gun rammer. With tank destroyers, the super slot, you're always going to put a gun rammer in the super slot. It's as simple as that. There's going to be very, very rarely when that's not going to be in there in any kind of tank destroyer because it's all about shooting as often as you can. IRM for that aim time. Camo net for staying invisible. My Excalibur, which I don't play my Excalibur very passively. In fact, I play it very, very aggressively. Again, rammer in the first slot, IRM in the second, and vents in the third. Second and third don't really matter. You can swap them. It won't matter at all. And I don't think we have any tier 6 SPGs. No, we don't. All tier 7, all tier 8. We've got a couple of tier 9 ones. With SPGs, at any tier, in all seriousness, at any tier with SPG, gun rammer in the first slot. Second and third, make it aim time stuff. Vents if you can. Vents is the only other piece of equipment which is going to make you reload faster, which is what the SPG is one of its bigger weaknesses, and an aim time thing. Either IRM or gun laying drive. Whatever you've got laying around. I think I just chucked that one in there because I have it laying around. If I was to redo it, I'd probably put the IRM in there. But if you don't have the option for vents, then I'll put both in. It's going to make your gun a lot more accurate. For tank destroyers, again, at any tier. For the higher tiers, again, gun rammer, enhanced gun laying drive, and I would go for the third slot, either vents or IRM. They're both going to help you aim, but I've put vents in this one to try to help the reload time a little bit as well. Other options for tank destroyers, you can experiment with turbochargers, camo nets, and binos. Plenty of people use camo nets and or binoculars in tank destroyers because they like sniping from bushes. I don't, so I don't really sort of play it like that. Heavy tanks at tier 7, 8, 9, and 10, pretty much. Hardening in the first slot, always hardening in the first slot. And the second two slots, you see in this one I've got V-stabs. It's a Russian tank. Russian tanks not known for their accuracy. The gun rammer, of course. Hardening in the rammer. The other one, sometimes instead of V-stabs, in my chieftain, I've put, and this is not just in my chieftain, but in the chieftain's the tank I play the most of in Clan Wars. This is bonded equipment or special equipment. However, it still runs true with normal equipment. Rammer, hardening in the first slot, which is going to give you more hit points, and those other bonuses that you can see there, 65% extra durability, 10% more hit points, 20% suspension repair speed, 10% load capacity, which doesn't really matter, 65% to hull damage caused by suspension damage during impact. But there's this other one, bounty protection technology, which is the same as modified configuration. Again, quicker repair speed if you've lost your track, quicker to fix your ammo rack if you've got a damage ammo rack, won't hurt your reload time quite so much. The loading time and the reload time, if you've got a damage ammo rack, fuel tank, or engine durability, they'll all sort of, the chances of you catching on fire will go down by 65% as well if it's in the first slot, 50 if it's in the second. So that's what I do with that one, because if I'm playing in clan wars, I'll get shot a lot. That's just what happens. So plenty of people who play competitively with heavy tanks will go hardening in the first slot, second slot modified configuration, third slot rammer. Now I'll just touch on special equipment. If you know about special equipment, then this guide's probably not for you. But if you're getting there, you're starting to pick up bonds. You can buy some of these equipment with bonds. You can also pick up bounty equipment from special events in RØDE tanks as well. And that's when I would save these pieces of equipment for the tanks that you really want to play competitively. Whether it's clan wars, whether it's tournaments, whatever floats your boat. Skirmishes. Remember skirmishes? They used to be great fun. Then whatever kind of competitive gameplay you're playing, then you can save it for this. You can see differently with the Chieftain, I've swapped into that bounty protection. That's the modified configuration in the second slot. Whereas the mouse and the E100, I don't. The reason with the mouse and the E100, they don't seem to get as much module damage as my Chieftain can. But also having that better aim time is what I want with those tanks when I'm playing those tanks competitively. Other changes. Other things are a little bit different. The CS63 came into the game not too long ago. I've chucked a turbocharger. If you're on a medium tank that you want it to go really quickly, turbocharger might work. That's one of the CS63's perks, is its speed. So the turbocharger would increase that speed a little bit more. But a lot of my medium tanks are pretty standard. Vents, optics, and rammer, or vents, V-stabs and rammer. They're the two things. Some people will swap out vents for optics in this one, and why not? If you think that's gonna work, but swapping out vents for optics, the other two options won't fit in the super slot. So mediums are a little bit funny like that. Maybe put the IRM there and then swap that one out for vents. That could be an idea. Anyway, I think we've waffled on for long enough. Hopefully this guide's going to be helpful to people with their equipment, going through the tiers. Hardening rammer and AMI stuff is the go-to for heavy tanks. AMI stuff. I know, unprofessional. Of course, auto loaders, again, at the high tiers are very different. You can't put rammers in them. But I generally put vents in my auto loaders. Apart from the bat chat, I'll put the IRM to try and make that gun a little bit more accurate, because it is an inaccurate gun. But with the TVP, vents in the first slot, V-stabs in the second, and I've set that one up for vision. This one's set up more for aiming, or two aiming pieces of equipment in the bat chat. Have a play around with it, read up on some guides. There are plenty of guides out there. Hopefully this has not confused too many people. Hopefully I've been relatively clear. If I haven't, please let me know, and we'll maybe do it again. And maybe break it down into smaller videos. I'm not too sure. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe and get on board. We're on Twitch, on YouTube. Links are all down below. Facebook, Discord, you name it, we're there. Hopefully this has cleared up a few things for people who might be a little bit new to the game and looking at equipment. I know when I first started playing, I saw the price of equipment was more than the price of some tanks. So I was thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with this equipment? It's going to cost too much. Then you'll now, at least with equipment 2.0, not having stuff at the lower tiers, like not having any equipment on a tier 1. And realistically, if you're playing tier 2, you could probably play tier 2 without equipment as well, if you're just, all you want to do is get a few battles to get to the next level. Quite viable. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. Take care, and see you all next time.